Hello from Diplomatic Language Services, and welcome to our podcast, Language Matters. We make language accessible to everyday people by discussing features which may not exist in other languages. I'm your host, Molly Sampson. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Language Matters. Today we're going to talk about Albanian, and we have with us Alma, who is from Albania and a native speaker of Albanian.
Hello.
And we have Charlie, who lived for a few years in Kosovo and is a non-native speaker of Albanian. So let's talk a little bit about, because you were in Kosovo and you're from Albania, so let's talk about regionally where the language is spoken and kind of how different it is across the region.
Well, Albanian is an Indo-European language which forms a separate branch or a branch of its own on the Indo-European tree of languages.
Which is what other languages?
Many languages on the Indo-European language tree. You have the Germanic, you have the Slavic languages, you have Greek, which is also a separate branch. But it doesn't have any close relatives. It has two main dialects, the Geg and Tosk. So I speak Tosk.
And I speak Geg, or I learned Geg in Kosovo.
Albanian is spoken by about 7.5 to 8 million people.
So what are the countries? Across which countries?
So Albanian is obviously the national language of Albania, but it's also the co-national language in Kosovo, along with Serbian, and North Macedonia, along with Macedonian. It's a co-equal language there, and it also has some regional, some regions in Serbia and Montenegro and parts of Greece that also speak Albanian, mostly in the south of Montenegro and the south of Serbia.
And southern part of Italy.
Yeah, and there's some Abaresh, which is it's a group of Albanians who left Albania during the Ottoman occupation and settled in what's now Sardinia and the Calabrese Peninsula in the south.
Calabria, yeah.
Okay. So you were talking a little bit about the differences among the dialects. So if we just say Albanian, how mutually understandable are they?
It's mutually intelligible. There are some differences in pronunciation, mostly, and some structures. That's why, they're not very important. Significant. Yeah. So everybody understands one another without an issue whatsoever.
The language was standardized in Albania in the 70s. And obviously, Alma can speak more to this. But that's considered literary Albanian. And
so if you watch a news program in Albanian, you're going to hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every
dialect.
news program and even the movies would be, the subtitles would be in standard Albanian or literary Albanian in the bottom. When I was watching the news or a movie, I could, even though my family would speak Geg, which for those who aren't familiar with the dialects between Albanian, Tosk and Geg, Tosk is very similar to the standard Albanian. It's mostly similar, while Geg is more different. But consider it sort of like a good parallel, I would say, is Dominican Spanish versus like Spanish in Spain. Or Dominican Spanish, they'll chop off the ends of words, or they'll have different words for something in another country. But a lot of the verbs are shorter, the nouns are said differently or more concise. For example, even the name for Albania, Shqiperia, in Geg, it would just be Shqipni.
Yes.
They shorten it.
Because Tosk is more rhotic, like they use more R's. For example, Rëra, and if you are from Kosovo, you'd say Rana. So that's why. And I think the closest, if I could give an example here, is the English spoken in Boston, that they add R. I think so. Because I can't.
They don't. You say R.
Or they don't. They
drop
say
the
R.
R's.
Yeah, they drop the R's.
We talked a little bit before about some of the interesting features that Albanian has. What are you? I guess maybe to start with, Charlie. What were some of the most difficult things for you, or still are the most difficult things for you to do in Albanian?
So in Albanian, the major things that were difficult for an English speaker to sort of get at, if you don't have any other languages under your belt, are really the verb tenses can be tough. It's different from in English, and the genders can be annoying or whatever. But the biggest difference is for someone who hasn't studied, for example, German or Spanish or other commonly studied languages in America, is probably clitics, which are these little add-ons that come in front of the verbs to denote when a direct object or an indirect object is going to be in coming up. And they can also they mean different things in different contexts too, and they can be the same. So that can be a little complicated. And so it's literally just a vowel that comes before a verb.
Kind of like a prefix.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's separate. It's like its own. There's a vowel space verb. If, for example, if I said it has gone or I went, sort of, it'd be like ushkova versus like it's gone is eshkoi.
Yeah.
You know?
In addition to that, also like the pronunciation, there are some Albanian has a lot of dual letters. So basically you have, like you have z and you have j. You have l and you have l.
That's
you have
for
t and you have th.
There are two L's.
Yes.
There's a double L and a single L, and that can be tough.
Right.
I still don't get that right.
So this is also a little bit difficult.
Can you say
when
two words that have single L and double L? So you can hear the difference?
So you could say pula, which is chicken, and pula, which is a stem.
Okay. Maybe I just use context clues to... I don't put chickens on letters, so we can just...
Yeah, in this
figure that one
case, you cannot make a mistake. It's just in the pronunciation because, why are you talking about chicken when you need a stem?
Yeah.
But as a foreigner, it's really hard.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce it?
It can be a big key off to say, oh, this person doesn't speak Albanian perfectly if they're saying pula versus pula. And I probably said the same thing twice. I was never good at it. I was always made fun of.
I'm not judging you.
Yeah, I was always made fun of by my host family in Kosovo for these sorts of things.
But I think Albanians would appreciate if you spoke the language. It doesn't matter what.
Yeah, that's true.
So as far as vocabulary, so a lot of languages nowadays are influenced by other languages and they get kind of mixed up. Do you have a lot of English words that Albanian has borrowed, or maybe from other different languages, maybe?
Yeah, quite a few. I think
Albanian
has had a lot of influence from Greek, Old Greek, Modern Greek, Slavic languages, Romance languages. Most of the words that we use, and we like to use are borrowed from Romance languages, from Ottoman, Turkish language. And also modern English, like computer, internet.
Standard words.
Yeah.
So what are some interesting, maybe English borrowed words or ones that have transformed actually into other meanings maybe?
Most of the words that are borrowed, I think they have Latin roots, words that also English uses. And I can give some examples. Special, special, but Albanian has the respective word in Albanian for this particular word, which is i veçantë, apel,
for
appeal, which is, yes. But then we have the Albanian thirrje, which is the same, dedikoj, right? Dedicate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But then,
verb, yeah.
But are these is the Albanian word?
But are these just cognates, or are they borrowed?
Well, I would say that they are borrowed because, even though we have the Albanian word for it, they are widely used.
But there's also stuff like modern, technological things like cobble for cable. It's just transliterations of often even spelled differently than they would be in English, like engineer with the XH.
How's engineer with an XH?
It's the Albanian transliteration. The J.
Engineer.
Yeah. It's not
So XH is J?
Yeah, J.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So these are the letters that I was explaining a few minutes ago. So when you see it written, then you're like, how do I read it?
So actually, we didn't talk about this. Is Albanian has accents and diacritic marks? Or is it purely just the same as our alphabet?
Yeah, well, we have 36 letters.
Well, that's not the same. So what are the extra?
These are the double letters that I mentioned.
They're counted as full-on letters.
Oh, but they're not actually different symbols.
No, they're not different symbols.
No different
we
symbols.
use Latin
But when you say the alphabet, you say L, double L?
You say A, B, C, L, Z,
okay.
J.
So when you sing the alphabet song, you have to add in all the double letters.
And there's one other vowel as well with a it's an E with an umlaut on top. That's pretty unique in terms of European letters, but it's just an or a silent letter at the end of words. But for a non-native or an English person coming into this, you see that it's like that looks like an E, and I'm not sure how to like use it, and then it changes. It's the if it's at the end of a word, it denotes gender, and it will be the first thing to change whenever the noun is moving around.
Albanian is read the same way it's written. So
it's phonetic.
It's
Yes,
phonetic.
totally
So you
phonetic.
shouldn't have any issues whatsoever
That
once
is the
you
easiest
understand the letters. Yeah.
I see. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does make it easier.
Albanian is interesting. It's really is a language that's taken on a lot of those, because Albania never was really a state until the turn of the century, and the turn of the 20th century.
And most of the Balkan countries,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
So it's definitely taken on a lot of parts from, throughout its
languages.
conquest, throughout whoever conquered the
Right.
area that's now Albania, whether there was the Romans back in antiquity, because it's not a Romance language. It has pieces of romantic words, or even maybe some of the grammar structures look kind of similar. It's still different enough that linguists don't
You
classify
cannot group it. You
They
cannot
can't group
classify it with any other language.
Yeah. So it takes on all these distinct aspects from those who have conquered it.
So I think also we were talking a lot about different phrases. So we always end with like idiomatic phrases, but I think there's a lot of culture embedded in the language. Can you talk about the difference between English and Albanian as far as like the cultural breadth of Albanian?
It's a hard question to answer because there are so many unique expressions, that you can find only in Albania, and even sometimes, they're so different from region to region. I'm sure that there are some expressions that are used more in Kosovo and some, in Albania. But then Albania, the northern part, is very different from the southern part, and then of course you have the
language is different, or the culture is different?
the language and the culture.
So what's like the stereotype? How would you stereotype us? Wait, are you from the south or the north?
I'm from the south. Yeah,
Okay.
my parents come from the south, but then I grew up in Tirana, the capital. So basically, it's more like a blended environment. So you have a lot of people from the south and a lot of people from the north.
Kind of general characters.
So basically, if you are from the south, you have no problem reading the poetry from the northern, poets, or poets that came from the north of Albania. But if you are from the north, you find it more difficult, to read the old poetry from the south.
But culturally,
The north is more Catholic, if I can say. Catholic and Muslim, and the south is predominantly Muslim, but it has a lot of Greek Orthodox, whether it's Greek or Albanian church.
Yeah.
And there's some small ethnic minorities of Greek as well. So
so a lot of it
they're
is
more
it's
religious.
Greco-focused.
It's religious, it's environmental,
Yeah.
It's different kind of food, different values. So, that's what makes it different. And that's why sometimes you have different expressions, because maybe in the South you use a different kind of food, and then there are expressions associated with it, but then you don't have that in the North.
So tell me kind of one of your favorite expressions.
Well, there are many, but one that I like a lot is, and I'll just say it in Albanian and then try to translate it literally if I can. So, mos u mbaj se ke, mos u mbaj se je, sepse kur të ikësh veç 2 metra dhe do kesh. Which means, no matter what you have and no matter who you are, when you die, you can't take everything with you. And I know it's an expression that is used a lot in the southern part of Albania.
An interesting one that I know from Kosovo, that it's used a lot, and even in pop songs, but it speaks a lot to the sort of the culture. Now I can explain it a bit. Is when someone says "Pasha jetin, Pasha shpirtin, Pasha nonin tem." It's I swear on my life, I swear on
My soul.
I swear on my mother, I swear Pasha familien, Pasha buken, which the last one, Pasha buken, means I swear on my food. So that the north of Albania and Kosovo can generally be clustered together in the same cultural and linguistic group of Geg Albanians, which because that the north in Kosovo is very mountainous. It's very hard to conquer, and they were able to resist conquest from other groups just by the nature of their environment. That it's difficult to get to, that the land is fertile but not that fertile. It's sort of just better left alone than to bother them.
Harsh winters.
And so
and
because of that,
mountainous.
because of the lack of rule of law effectively, they developed their own legal system called the Code of,
Kanun.
the Kanun of Lek Tukajini, which is a lord of
Penal code.
yeah, sort of a
basically.
penal
It's
code, but it's a standard by which people are treated, guests, enemies, allies, etc. And it has this concept:
husbands, wives,
family members, everything.
children.
It tries to cover everything.
Yeah.
And this idea of swearing on something is sort of like a extra legal but cultural and like really deep. It's a really deep meaning oath. Pasha Yetin or Pasha Shmirtin. The word Pasha comes from the idea of like to see. It's a past form of to see something, and that's only something that's occurred to me recently because it's often just said Pasha Yetin, Pasha Shmirtin, whatever. But then when I thought more about it, it really dawned on me the importance of this oath that's being kept to be seen as a sort of a public oath that you're giving to someone else. I'm swearing that this is the truth, that I'm going to do this, that this will happen on something that's deeply important to me, my family, my own food, my house.
Yeah. Because
My
in the
soul.
northern part of Albania, this is connected to Besa, which is, this is another sort of code that, if somebody promised to do something, they will do it, period. And it's going to be done, and whatever it takes. So that's why they use it more.
Is
But
that the
instead,
case?
Yes, and it's still the case to this
okay.
day.
Still
Okay.
the case.
Well, thank you very much. That's it for today. And how do you say thank you in Albanian?
Faleminderit.
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 Alma, faleminderit. Charlie,
Ska përse, Molly.
is that your welcome?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. And that's the end.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Language Matters. You can continue this conversation by tweeting us at DiplomaticLS or find us on Facebook by searching for Diplomatic Language Services.